Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I will be sharing with you my April reading wrap-up. Now, as you know, I was participating in the Owl's Magical Readathon during April, and as seems to be the case with my general mood lately, I did some underachieving and did not manage to complete all of my owls. But I trust that the Hogwarts authorities have been alerted to the current global situation and will allow me to make up for my owl's deficit before August. So I will continue on as if nothing happened. Without further ado, let's wrap up some books. The first thing that I read in the month of April was Run and the Grey World Volume 1 by Aki Irie. This was to fill my prompt in Transfiguration, which was to read a book with shapeshifting. And Run and her whole immediate family are basically witches. And this world is really interesting because it seems that there is this sort of underworld of magic and magic users that live alongside regular people. And Run's mother is a sort of guardian of this type of interdimensional portal, but in this first volume it isn't fully explained that what she's doing, but she is essentially a guardian of this portal, and therefore she cannot live with the rest of her family. And Run would very much want to grow up and become a powerful witch so that she can join her mom and she can start living with her mom. And this is basically like a story about her acting out and her not understanding, because she's like a 10-year-old, why she is separated from her mother. And she lives with her brother and father and goes to school, and she doesn't really get along with others because they think she's weird. So there's a lot of interesting theming going on. I saw some interesting reviews saying that this book has a problematic romantic storyline. And I understand what they mean, because in this story there is an adult man whom Run meets when she has transformed into an adult version of herself, but she still is mentally a 10-year-old. And the author could potentially, in future volumes, go down a very icky rabbit hole with these two characters. But in my opinion, in this book at least, it is sort of, to my understanding at least, that male character was portrayed as an antagonistic figure down to his character design. But I am worried. I still want to read the second volume, but I am slightly worried of where this might end up going. The art style of this volume is super pretty. Like, look at that. It's gorgeous. Like, everything that's in this book is lovely to look at. But the story, I felt that I felt that you could have used some more, given some more character moments and fleshed up the characters a bit more, like the central cast of characters a bit more before introducing various side characters. Because story-wise this feels like a lot is being asked of the reader in terms of this being a pilot volume. This asks the reader to get to know this huge cast of characters, and also the world building, and also the magic system. So there's a lot to take in. So I ended up giving this first volume 3 out of 5 stars because it is interesting, but at the same time I felt that it was a little all over the place. Next up I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and this was to fill my charms prompt to read a book with white on the cover, and as you can see, it is white on the cover. And I love this book. It tells the story of Dana, who gets sucked into the past to like the southern states, like of the United States during when slavery was still happening in the United States, and she gets basically summoned by her ancestor to help him from getting killed, and he keeps summoning her to this past timeline multiple times out of distress. And at first you think that this book would be very much sort of like trauma porn, basically, of Dana as a black woman from modern times trying to survive in the slave South. But I actually felt that this book was more hopeful than anything. It is about Dana coming to terms with her past and what her ancestry is like and getting answers, while also reclaiming her agency and reclaiming her, like, her identity in a sense. It is about generational trauma. It is about how people justify doing horrible things to others. And yeah, like, I just feel like this is a book that will speak to a lot of different kinds of people. And it was really marvelously told. I loved Octavia E. Butler's prose. Sometimes it was a little bit repetitive because, like, the characters are rehashing historical points, and like there's dialogue between Dana and her partner about what she needs to know when she's going to the past and such. But other than that, I thought that this was very well executed. And content warnings apply for violence, rape, and slavery. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. One thing that I really appreciated about this was how competent the characters were. Like Dana, the first 2 times she gets pulled back into the past, she's like, okay, I don't understand what's going on. But then she's like, okay, I realize that this is a thing that will keep on happening, so how can I make myself like survive these situations? So this character, like Dana, is super competent, and like she prepares for things, and she thinks about what could happen to her, and then proceeds to find out solutions to her problems. And it's amazing. Like I feel like I don't have adequate words to describe this book because it's so, like, it hits you in the feelings, and I don't know, it just kind of leaves you hollow in a sense, because it is a very emptying experience reading this book, if you know what I mean. But I also think that the overall message of this book is that of hope and positivity, that your past and your history doesn't necessarily dictate who you get to be and who you are, and your ancestors and your ancestry don't define you. So yeah, I gave Kindred by Octavia E. Butler 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Last Children of Tokyo by Yoko Tawada. This was translated from the Japanese by Margaret Mitsutani, and it's a short dystopian sort of post-apocalyptic novel or a novella, I should say, about a future Japan where like a natural cataclysm of like pollution basically has caused the nature and environment to drastically change, and it has also caused the children of Japan being born a bit crippled and fragile, and the children are dying out young, and they don't live very long, whereas the elderly people have started to live longer and longer, and they are basically almost like immortals. And you have these classes of young elderly and middle-aged elderly and old elderly, because the elders are now making up the majority of the population. And Japan in this future has locked its borders, and it has basically become very isolationist and traditionalist. Foreign words and foreign tools and foreign implements are forbidden, and this book kind of looks at how that world would look like and how people would be speaking and how they would interact with each other. For example, if English and internet and stuff were banned. And it's basically a slice of life pastiche about this old grandfather taking care of his grandchild, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I will say this was very slow moving and like sometimes hard to get through. Like, I liked the ideas, I liked the wordplay. I think sometimes it was like you could tell that the translator was having a hard time translating some of this, because there are kanjis thrown in the mix inside the text to give you a proper understanding of what is going on, and there is like I feel like there is such a like huge amount of wordplay in the different meanings of various words that it doesn't quite manage to come across into English, which doesn't have as many, for example, homonyms as Japanese does. I actually wonder if I should find out if this has a translation in Finnish, because I think that in Finnish this might work a bit better, considering just the similarities between languages. Anyway, that's a translation nerd in me talking, but I just generally thought that this story didn't really have a story in it. It was more like things happening to this grandfatherly type, and there was no coherent arc of what was happening, and the novel just kind of ends without any kind of satisfying resolution. So I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was okay, but I doubt that I will read it again. And the last thing that I read in the month of April was Monster and the Beast by Renji. And this is a BL manga, so boys love manga, about this monster and this older gentleman here. Monster is named Kavo, and this older gentleman is called Liam. And they meet one day when Kavo, the monster, finds Liam in a very compromising position and ends up saving him. And they strike up this weird partnership out of necessity. And you'd think that Kavo would be this ruthless monster and Liam would be a charming sort of princely type, but this is actually a subversion of the Beauty and the Beast trope. Kavo is a monster in essence, he is physically a monster, but he is very sort of naive and innocent. Whereas Liam is super handsome and charming in first appearances, but he is actually a very calculating, conniving, and a super manipulative person. And I like that this first volume deals with this subversion of the trope, and I also liked that there is talk of consent and boundaries, which is very rare for a boys love manga, let me tell you. Some people have criticized this for having Liam as a romantic interest when Liam is clearly a despicable person, but I tend to disagree because this first volume is just introducing the character dynamic, and they don't even really get to be in that romantic relationship type of way. I feel like this is going to be a very slow burn, and it is actually more fantasy plot driven than smut driven, which was actually very surprising to me. There is a mysterious plot going on as to Liam being pursued by people. Why do they pursue him? What has he done? And this first volume actually ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, which was kind of annoying. And but I guess I will have to figure it out and buy the second volume, because I actually kind of like this. The art style is pretty decent. I kind of like it. I also like that this has an older gentleman as the main character. And also it has one of my favorite romantic tropes, which is size difference. So I am expecting a lot out of this. I hope the smut is good once we get to it. I will also applaud the author. This was their first published work, and they basically say in the afterword that they wanted this certain type of monster smut that they couldn't find, and then they decided to make it themselves. And I can get behind of that kind of work ethic, so I will continue to support this author. I normally don't rate smut, but to give you an estimate about how I thought about this, I'd say I gave it 3.5 stars. And there you have it. Those were all of the things that I read during the month of April. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me in the comments which of these books sound the most interesting to you. And leave me a flower emoji down in the comments to let me know that you are here. I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye bye!